Welcome to the Lean Solutions Podcast. This is the podcast that adds value to leaders by helping you improve performance using process improvement solutions with bottom line results. My name is Patrick Adams, and this season I'll be joined by three other amazing hosts, including Catherine McDonald from Ireland, Andy Olrich from Australia, and Shane Doffendahl from the United States. Join us as we bring you guests and experiences of lean practitioners from all over the world.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Lean Solutions Podcast, led by your hosts, Andy Olrich and myself, Catherine McDonald. Andy, how are you today?
I'm going great, Catherine. Well, thank you. How are you?
Good. The usual daily juggle for me to get out here and get through everything else in the day. So I think we have a great topic today, which might actually help me as well as our listeners. Today, we are going to talk about, Andy, prioritizing the wrong work. How does that sound?
Prioritizing the wrong work. That's a very good topic, and I will put my hand up that I fall into that trap intentionally or unintentionally. So yeah, I'm really keen to unpack this one.
Yeah. I think we all do in our personal lives and also in organizations. And I think there'll be hopefully a few listeners listening in today going, yeah, gosh, like I resonate with that. I resonate with what our guest today, Emma Bint, is going to be talking about. And I'll let you introduce Emma in a few minutes, Andy. But just on the topic and just to explain to listeners what we're going to talk about, I like this topic because I've always been fascinated by the difference between efficiency and effectiveness. And I think, efficiency, Emmy, you can jump in already and correct me if you want, but efficiency is really about, I suppose, focusing on doing things right, whereas effectiveness is doing the right thing. And there's a huge difference between those two things. And a lot of the time on the show, we'll talk about efficiency, we'll talk about lean and Six Sigma and quality improvement, and we'll focus on the efficiency, how we get things done. But really, we need to get the balance right between efficiency and effectiveness. So making sure we're focusing on the right things. So this, I hope, will be a really interesting conversation with Emma. So what we need to understand is, and Emma, you're going to talk to us that the companies that are most successful need to get this balance right. So the reason being, when we prioritize the wrong work, it actually prevents us from growth and development in our organizations. It holds us back. But we're going to talk about the ways to, I suppose, prevent this. Really, in order to prevent this, it is possible, and it's possible when we create a culture of continuous improvement. So it's about regularly reassessing our priorities. It's about leveraging our tools and knowledge and methodologies like Lean and Six Sigma in the right way. And it's making sure that teams are not wasting time on tasks and initiatives that are misaligned, and that they are spending more time on work that is impactful and aligned to our goals and the direction that we want to go in. So really what we want to do is we want to make sure we get this balance right to ensure organizational success and individual fulfillment. So we're going to talk about how we do all that with Emma. And Andy, would you like to introduce Emma to our listeners there?
Thanks, Catherine. Absolutely. A great topic. So let's talk about Emma. Emma Bint is the Managing Director of High CI Ltd. Graduating with a Masters of Law degree and 2 postgraduate certificates in leadership, Emma then went on to certify as a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt and found her passion for continuous improvement. For the last 12 years, she has had extensive experience in working in the service side of Lean, such as customer service, sales, after sales, administration, ops, finance, logistics, and shared services. Emma has worked for global organizations, leading her own CI, OpEx and RPA specialists, but also uses her CI skills to help develop leadership teams, transform processes, and create functional CI strategies for growth and cultural change. Her experience has culminated in setting up a new company, which provides professional continuous improvement solutions, known as High CI Ltd. Fantastic. Welcome to the show, Emma. How are you?
You. I'm really good. How are you?
Going well, thanks. There's some fantastic backstory there on you, but I was just wondering, would you like to talk a little bit more about yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. I suppose everyone enters Lean from a different background, don't they? And mine was operations, although I have quite figured out it might have been a bit sooner than that. So I was looking after a team of operations specialists in a company I used to work for, and quickly realised we needed some methodologies to help us with our processes. And so I went on to certify as a black belt. But then I was able to use those skills to really drive continuous improvement from a cultural perspective and a leadership perspective, and was lucky enough to work in lots of different leadership teams, helping teams not only with their processes, but also with their ways of working. And I think Catherine sort of mentioning what you were talking about at the beginning, it's the ways of working that I think that we overlook sometimes from a lean perspective. We tend to focus on the processes and but never how we work as individuals or as teams that could actually cause the biggest wastes for us. So yeah, got into that, and then decided that I wanted to set up my own business. Very passionate about CI, and did that very recently actually. So in December, I set up on my own.
Wow. Congrats, Emma.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's super. So it sounds like you've been on a bit of a journey. You're obviously passionate about continuous improvement. You have seen, I suppose, room for improvement or the opportunities for improvement within organizations and the need for this kind of information and methodology and all of this, which is really, really important. As we know, probably all the listeners probably are understand the importance of this as well. But I think you're going to expand and tell us a little bit about what happens when we don't do this. So I think you, by the sounds of it, you have had some experience in the other side of things when things don't go right and when you are prioritizing on the, the wrong things. So tell us a little bit about what that looks like, or what happens when an organization is prioritizing the wrong things. How do we even know we are?
It's a great question, and I think it's a big topic, isn't it? So we could probably talk on this one for a long time, but I actually think not prioritizing the right work is a really underrated and overlooked area of waste. I don't think we recognize it as waste when we're in organizations because we're so busy doing the do and dealing with competing priorities and dealing with our teams and dealing with our other colleagues that we really miss this as a big area of waste. And I have worked in organizations where we believe we're doing the right thing, but we're kind of like our own enemies because we're preventing us being the best that we can be through the ways that we work. And it was only through sort of identifying that and understanding what those things were, could we sort of recognize how we wanted to work on them. So just as a little bit of a for instance, I would spend lots of time reclarifying things, or spend lots of times, going over information or realigning to the message. And sometimes that has a negative impact on teams as well. So those are some of the areas of wastes that we could see when we do prioritize the wrong work.
Great, Emma. You talked about negative impacts. I'd like to expand on that a little bit. And if you've got some lived examples that you might just want to touch on briefly, whatever you like. So yeah, what are some of those, and how does that, for me, one of the impacts that comes through is around the ability for the growth of the organization, and in turn the people there as well, like for them to develop and learn new things or be able to shine through some of those good skills they have.
Yeah,
can you talk us through a couple of those examples, please?
Absolutely. I think if we just take a step back in terms of understanding organizations and their competing priorities, when we're working with people, it's not necessarily the people we're working directly with. It's also the people we work around and the wider teams. And what that does is it creates a need for interdependencies. And in that space, it can actually mean that we have to communicate, or probably over-communicate more than we think that we do. And if we're not prioritizing the right work, what can happen is those conversations can turn into non-constructive conversations because nobody necessarily knows if they're doing the right thing or not. And what can also happen from a cultural perspective is that you may get subcultures where you'll get a group of people who may be aligned in a certain way, and then another group of people who will be aligned in a different way. and you get this kind of like mini climate culture going on, which can create, as you know, from a behavioural perspective, more of a negative impact than maybe a positive impact. So I think from a cultural perspective, that's what I mean. But also from conflicting messaging, we can waste a lot of time. Again, on the phone or calling different people just to clarify your message. What did that mean? What did this mean? I don't understand. Again, not understanding what the right work to work is on can also cause, you know, lack of clarity and potentially closeted decision making, where decision making will again go off into small pockets, and then you've got someone saying, oh, that person said this, and oh no, then that person said that. So again, a real sort of like cultural difference there. And potentially also that means that, you know, when the performance management of teams or the performance of the business is really looked at, we could be missing what our performance targets are and indicators are, because of all that wastage that's going on around us.
I think too, the piece around getting time to do additional development, training, you know, there's also more of those discretionary type efforts by, you know, being busy doing the wrong things. I think that's, yeah, it's really resonating with me, Emma, around those comments that you made. So thank you for that.
It reminds me of when I first started learning about lean management, and I was shown the picture of the duck on the water, you know, gliding along with the legs underneath going, you know, 90 to the dozen, like everybody's really busy under the surface working on things, tasks, whatever comes up, whatever's urgent. And to everybody else, it seems like everything's okay. You know, we're sailing down the river, we're working every day, everybody has jobs, everything's fine. But it's not coordinated, you know, it's sort of chaotic and it's not coordinated. So yeah, that's what it reminds me of. And do you ever find, Emma, that when you know, see these organizations that maybe they're not prioritizing, you know, the right work or the right things, do they come across as firefighting, or do they come across as stressed?
Absolutely. I think reactive is the word that I would use. Reactive to problems that are happening right then and there, not necessarily anticipating that problem and understanding how they could maybe mitigate those things before they happen. And stressed, unfortunately, Catherine, is a great word to describe that situation, because when we think about how you know, we do work every day, we would like to be able to spend time having lunch. We would like to be able to spend time taking a coffee break to meet with people. But I don't see that all that often. And also, you know, it's almost a little bit frowned upon sometimes. Maybe if we're taking more than half an hour break in some circumstances, or actually people are booking meetings throughout your lunch breaks, throughout that lunch period. And that is a real indicator and a symptom of a reactive environment.
Yeah.
I think I like the duck reference, Catherine. Did you say 90 to the dozen? I hadn't heard that.
That's probably an Irish term.
Yeah, that's great. Why I love that too is when you're talking about it with the right work and that. Did you call them subclimates, Emma, as well? Was that?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's a fantastic term, and that one hit me right between the eyes. I've worked in an organisation like that, and the duck thing. I may have mentioned it before, but the ducks on the pond. If people are kind of busy and they're maybe not 100% sure of what they really should be doing with confidence, they, you know, you see a leader go out onto the floor into an office area and they just kind of slowly all scatter to the far corners and kind of look busy doing something. I think with the prioritization, if you know you should be working on something or having that sacred time, you stay where you are, and you got full confidence to turn around and say, well, this is what I know, this is what we're supposed to be doing, right? So I love those couple of terms. Learning new things all the time. So that's a fantastic bit of commentary there.
Yeah. Yeah, Emma, Andy, were you about to say something else? Sorry.
No, you go, Catherine. Yep.
I was just thinking, so you just painted a picture really well of what it looks like when an organization is reactive and, let's say, isn't aligned to a bigger purpose, or, you know, everybody's busy, but maybe we're busy doing the wrong thing, so it's a little bit stressed and everybody's a little bit stressed. So how do we get ourselves out of that? How does an organization see this happening and say, right, we need things to change. We need to start working on the right things. We need to identify what the right things are first. So how do organizations turn it around, Emma?
I think the first thing is about how do we know we're not working on the right things to begin with? And that can look like not finishing projects, maybe starting a project and then it being put on hold halfway through, or being stopped completely and then having to do something else. And if that's happening a lot, then that's another indicator, another signal that we're probably not working on the right things. One of the ways that I've certainly done in the past, and I would certainly carry on doing, is have that alignment at the beginning. So often I think we believe we have to dive straight into sorting out, right, let's just jump straight into the solution, let's figure out we're amazing, let's do this. And that's great, that's you know, that will and that want shining through. But I always like to advise customers and clients to just take that step back, because what needs to happen is that full alignment between the team and the team members, at however large or small the team is. And to start with the why, because the why is such an important part of prioritizing the right work. And not only to understand the why, but also the what's in it for me conversation. Because if we as individuals in a team aren't aligned to either the why or why we're doing it for us personally, we may not be able to go forward in the most effective or efficient way. So having that alignment, that session where we come together as a team and we understand what are the things that are blocking us, what are the things that we're finding challenges with, and getting it all out on the table so that we have an appreciation of a start, our jump point really, and then we can, you know, move forward from there. And tools that, you know, I'm sure you guys have used often, come to the space where we're doing this alignment. If we're lucky enough to have a lean facilitator in the presence, I would often advise bring that lean facilitator in, because not only do they have that subjective opinion, but they have the tools and the techniques to help that team get to the right space. If there isn't a lean facilitator, maybe a HR person or a change person to be that facilitator, because it really helps the team think, get that clarity, get that, you know, the leader isn't having to do two jobs, being the leader and the facilitator. They can have that space to be with the team and think with the team. And using those tools, whether it's prioritization matrices, whether it's starting at a strategic level from a SHIN perspective, to let the lean facilitator use those tools with the team to start getting it all in order. It could even be as simple as an infinity diagram whilst you're doing those alignment sessions, just so teams can start to feel that clutter decrease from their brain and seeing it out on paper, and understanding what themes they're actually working with. Or even a fishbone, you know, that we don't often use fishbones at leadership. We use fishbones in processes, don't we, to solve problems. But actually, from a leadership perspective, you can really bucket those things from a people, process, systems, environment, you know, culture, whatever that bucket is, and you can start to really hone in on where we think our biggest challenges are arising.
Hey everyone, I am sorry to interrupt this episode of the Lean Solutions podcast, but I wanted to take a moment to introduce you to our company, Lean Solutions. We exist to empower and equip people for positive change. We do this through our 3 pillars, which include training and development, coaching and consulting, and talent solutions. Whether you have specific areas for improvement or you're not really sure where to start, we can build tailored solutions and provide resources to meet your needs. Send us an email at office@findleansolutions.com to begin your journey towards transformation. Now, back to the show.
You've got a great story, Emma, and I'm always fascinated by the guests that come on, what maybe they were doing before or started out doing before they get into the lean CI space. So doing your law degree, plus a couple of other postgraduate things, and then jumping into the CI Lean Six Sigma space. That's a pretty cool story. I wanted to maybe just unpack that a little bit, but if we're able to, just what was the catalyst for that really? Like, why did you think I've done this and now I think I might go and do some of this Lean Six Sigma stuff?
So yes, I studied law at university, but I wasn't very good at it, Andy. So I quickly pivoted in the organisation that I was in and understood what I was good at there. And it was operations. I was quite well organised. I was able to understand big end-to-end processes and piece them together, and started from there. But the catalyst for me is when I started in an administration operations role, and we kept getting customer complaints, and I was like, why? Why does this keep happening? And luckily had a friend who had done Lean Six Sigma before, so kind of knew there was something out there that could help. And I started to research it and quickly understood what it was. It really aligned with my introverted nature and my process brain. So I was like, right, I've got it. And to be honest, Andy, as soon as I discovered what it was, I knew that was my purpose. I just knew. I don't know if you guys have ever had that clunk click moment in your lives, but when I discovered Lean Six Sigma, I just knew. So I was intrigued, and I spent all of my time reading, learning, studying.
Good on you. Yeah, I had that light bulb moment. Yeah, I didn't start here in this space, but I love it. I really connect with that. Oh, that's it. That's the thing. And yeah, here we are a few years later. And you mentioned some tools, okay, but
Yeah.
I just really, for those out there listening that are sort of thinking, well, that sounds great, and I'm right where you are in some of those examples. Is there any particular tool or tools that you wanted to mention, and we can just talk about some applications of those? Or we're just getting started, for example, and we don't have a lean facilitator that we can just pull in, or someone independent or whatever, or from within. What would be your go-to tools to get the team up and away and really starting to see that mess, for example, of the wrong stuff in with the good stuff?
Yeah, I think it's a very simple affinity. Let's theme it up. Let's theme where our problems are. I think that's a real basic tool. If there's no lean facilitator and that leader doesn't necessarily have any lean training, let's not call it an affinity, because that's more technical. Let's call it a themed piece where you decide what buckets your problems or your challenges fall into. Other tools that I would use are maybe a Kano tool, where we're understanding our delighters, our satisfiers, and our dissatisfiers, or our must-haves. That's a really great tool just to understand, are we actually doing the basics right? Are we getting the basics right in this organization? And if not, why not? If not, how can we? And what are the delighters that we're offering our customers? And is it too soon to offer those delighters because we've got to do the basics? Or actually do we need to stand out against the competition? And these are the delighters that we can confidently offer our customers at that point. So that's a good one, and quite a fun one to do. I mentioned the fishbone before. That's almost a segue from the Kano to kind of delve a little bit deeper into that. And then moving on to a solutions matrix percentage, or an ease benefit diagram to maybe see how hard these things are going to be, or how costly these things are going to be, and pick just a few. I think that would be my one thing. Don't feel like you've got to take the whole piece of the pie and try and eat it all. You haven't. Again, I think a common mistake with prioritization is that, we feel we've got to do it all. No, we can't. We've got to be honest with ourselves. We can't do it all. Let's break it down. Let's chunk it up. What are those matrices telling us? What are those prioritizations telling us? Some of the tools that we use, and start with them. First, it's usually the quick wins. Gain momentum, gain some traction, gain some confidence from the team, gain some benefits, see some hard outputs, and then try and build on the other ones, because you may need investment for those types of things. So there's maybe 3 or 4 really simple key tools that you can use to get teams into a position where they can see the first couple of things that they could do that's going to have a big impact.
That's great. Yeah, really helpful, Emma. And I like that you start with the current state, because I know you do a lot of process mapping with teams, and you know, you take the lean and continuous improvement approach, that we have to see a process, we have to visualize, together we have to understand how something works in order to see where we can improve it. So I love your approach that you're bringing people together, and you're not starting with, let's say, the problem, you know, we need to fix it. You're starting with, let's understand what's happening first. And I think then it's easier and to lead and inspire people to see, well, look, we can see what's happening. What are each of us? It's like creating a pull system. What can we do about it? You know, what are the things that we can just go out and do differently and commit to doing now that we see the way that we're doing them? You know, so what is this kind of future state? And then, you know, I suppose that part is sometimes the easy part, I find, in terms of when you see the just do it actions and people go, yeah, I'll do that. I'll go off and fix this and I'll do that. Sometimes it's harder to work on the things that are more cross-functional, or the processes that are spread out and interdependent across the whole organization. So how do we get to the point where we can see the, you know, issues and opportunities for improvement, work on the most important priority processes that are linked to our strategic objectives that will drive us forward, but at the same time adopt this structured problem-solving approach to make sure that we're fixing the things that are not so easy to fix?
Wow, that's a big question.
Yeah.
Well, there's no silver bullet to that, Catherine, at all. And again, I think we would have to start small with that one, because especially with working with interdependent teams that you need to help you or rely on to do your piece of work. If we think about the whole, you know, a core process or an end-to-end process, and we start beginning potentially with new product introduction or something like that, and then the end of the process, which is usually finance, there's a lot of people involved in that chain to get that right. So how do we confidently know that everyone in the chain is thought about? And it's about education. And that'd be the first thing that I would, you know, do with a lot of teams, is once you see that process visualized in front of you. So mapping is a great visualization tool. I use it for communication. Do you know, or do you know the other people that you impact by the work that you do? And actually, these are the people that you impact, and these are the problems that sometimes are caused for them as a result of the work that you do. And there's a wow moment at that point with a lot of teams, and they go, oh, I didn't realize that my work that I did upstream impacted all the way downstream. So I'd say, like we were saying before, Catherine, we can't do everything at once, but that education piece and that visualization piece, I think, was one of the first things I would do to get the teams all on board and understand, right, that would be our starting point for me anyway.
Yeah, I actually fully agree with you. The process mapping, bringing people together, even just the conversations that happen there and the visuals you use, it's so important, isn't it, in terms of getting to the root of the bigger priorities. Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Emma. That's great. That's great.
I love it. The visualization and the 2 points, there's either that see, you know, see, look at that, no wonder, and the see and the no wonder. It's there's people that can sit there and look at all of that and go, oh, no wonder we're in the mess we're in, or no wonder I feel the way I do. Look at this beast. Look at all the people that are connected, and I haven't even thought of talking to those people and getting that clarity and alignment just through a process map or something. That's where I think the tools come in, and we're mentioning it's culture, it's people, it's all that sort of stuff that the tools help support, not the other way around. So it sounds, you know, like you've got some really good lived experience and some richness of some of those interactions.
Well,
so if we go in and, sorry, Emma, you go.
I was just going to add just a point really. One of the indicators for me is when we have teams set up in an end-to-end process that are there to correct the work. So often you might get process or no, invoice correction teams, or something that's correcting the work, and it's quite not strange or almost funny for me, where we don't, just the name of the team is indicating that we've got a problem, because why would you employ people to correct work that's already been done? That's I find that funny.
Like it's like the returns department, you know. And
Yeah.
why would anyone want to return? But yeah, it's true. It's true. Good. Yeah. So Emma, you talk a lot about aligning the work. So how do we, I suppose, link what we're talking about here in terms of people's daily work and the work of teams and individuals? Where does the strategic alignment come in, as in the strategic goals and the filtering of those into teams to inform the, you know, priorities? Because you would think, I suppose, if they were in place and if they were communicated properly all the way down and teams were involved in their development, that we wouldn't have this big a problem where people were just going off in different directions. So how do we do that better? The strategic, the setting the goals from, I suppose it has to be top down in a way. How do we do that better to inform all of this?
Yeah, excuse me. This is now back to ways of working, Catherine and Andy, isn't it? So we talked a little bit about efficiencies, that linear end-to-end process. What you're talking about there for me is all about ways of working and effectiveness. And system thinking, that is a real big part of strategic deployment and, you know, the waterfall of those goals. So a great tool is Hoshin. I don't know how many organizations use that. Some use it in different ways. Some use it in sort of like KPI format, and others will use a generational plan where you work back with the end in mind, start with the end in mind and work back to where you are to build that plan. It just depends, you know, what organization you are. But I think having the approach of understanding what your goals are, what are the key goals that we've got to achieve, and not necessarily for next year, but in the next 5 years. Let's really start thinking ahead. What does this year look like? What improvements have we got to make for this year, and what are the measures of success? And then how are we going to plan all those measures of success? And this is where that culture of CI and Lean really sort of comes into its own, because this is starting from a top-down perspective, like you say, Catherine, where we're understanding the organizational goals from a Hoshin perspective. And then you can cascade that. You can almost cascade that Hoshin into the next leadership team. And they create the same document, but with their aligned goals and what they're doing for their particular part of the business to the overall strategic goal. And then it's a rinse and repeat at that leadership level, everyone having their own strategic document that's interlinked and aligned, and it cascades to the next leadership team, and then so on and so forth, all the way through to the individual. You can then sort of set those KPIs with individuals and also maybe OKRs, and you've got that holistic approach to not only strategic deployment and goal setting, but alignment and a culture of continuous improvement. Now I say that, but that is probably one of the hardest things to do. And you may have come across this, Andy and Catherine, in your environments, in your roles. It's very difficult to do, and what can happen is the momentum is lost quite quickly, and it stops, and then it's not revisited again, and then we wonder why we're having to constantly revisit again. So I would say the methodology is there, and there is that's proven and worked, but the ability to practice and carry it out and keep practicing it and keep reflecting and keep coming back to it. Are we still doing the right thing? That habit or that systematic approach isn't there. Or I don't see working in unison too often. So it's a very difficult thing to do, I would say. So it sounds easy, but it's not.
You touched on measures there, Emma. Some classic examples out there. If we do a really great job at just clearing out the clutter, like prioritizing or getting them up, okay, yeah, our customers want us to do that as well. Great, they're up on the wall. Let's go. And then the measures aren't done or even well defined. They're kind of to help keep that, well, are these the right things that we're doing really, and how are we improving? And I think that resonated with me about the measures piece to help us look at it more consistently and truly understand if we are even doing that thing well by the numbers, or something that we can definitely lean back on. So when you touch on measures, I think it's so critical, where we get the things, the what's up there, and the how, but what's that looking like? So have you got a let's say not such a great story of how that may have gone a bit sideways for you in the past, or a team that you had to pull back on track?
It's happened in every team we've worked in, Andy. There isn't one team in particular or one organisation, because it's so difficult. And whilst you're working with that structure, and you may be lucky enough to have a lean expert working with you in that environment, but the world changes around you at the same time.
Yeah.
The economy changes, the market changes, something else happens. I don't know, you get a new CEO, you get a new leadership team. All those things are running in parallel to trying to sort out your approach and your strategic deployment. And as soon as anything changes outside, something's got to change inside. And that's why the habit of constantly reviewing your strategic deployment in however way you do it has to become a habit. Because you've got to constantly change with what's going on around you, and you wouldn't want to change too much. You might want to fractionally change, because you should be going in the right direction if you're reviewing your strategic approach often. But those marginal gains, or that slight realignment to whatever is happening in the outside world, has to run hand in hand. And I would say that that's the same in law. Somebody asked me the other day, how do you relate lean to law? It's the world is changing very, very quickly. The laws don't stay the same. How are you going to quickly, reprecedent something to fit what's happening in today's world?
So there's that ad hoc, we have to change, like some things that push in and drive that change. But is there also a cadence, like a minimum cadence you would put on prioritization? Like how often at a minimum we should look to reprioritize?
Great question, Andy. And I think reprioritize can be a dangerous word. It might not be that we need to reprioritize everything. When I think of reprioritizing, I think of just shuffling everything up in the air and letting it land and seeing what happens. I think it's about just slightly changing if we need to. Because if we've got the right strategy and the overarching strategy hasn't changed too much and everything's fairly stable, you should only need to maybe tweak that every so often. And I would like to, as a lean practitioner and being in that world, do it every 3 months or at least every quarter with the team, so that we're just checking in every now and again. Is everything still the same, or has anything changed? No? Okay, let's go again and carry on with our plans.
Yeah.
Right.
Shows the importance of leadership, doesn't it? As always comes into our conversations. It doesn't just happen. You have to look at what's happening. The leader has to bring people together to review, to adapt, to understand what's happening. So leadership is just so important here, isn't it?
100%. Yeah. It's everything to do with it, isn't it? Because it's the leader who's going to drive all those things happening. They're the ones who are going to say how we do things.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, so just to sum up, and you can tell me if I've missed anything. So I suppose, why I'm trying to think about why this happens in the first place. So why we prioritize the wrong work to begin with. So what I hear from you, Emma, is it happens for a few reasons. The one being, a big one being, misaligned goal setting. So and that stems from maybe goal setting isn't happening in the first place, or maybe there's poor communication there. So we're not communicating out to people and working with people and involving people in what the goals are to help them align their work to what the most important things are. And obviously a lot of that falls on leadership to do that, and leaders. Also, you talked about, the lack of systems, review systems, the lack of effective data measures, lack of just, I suppose, willingness to adapt and to change. Simple bad habits we can fall into. And again, that's maybe where the need for individual supports and coaching comes in to help people change and adapt. And then just basically not enough focus on the people side in general, because a lot of this, as you have said, comes down to shaping the culture and people and support to get this right, and guiding, gentle guidance, but inspiring people to see what's needed and giving them the autonomy to work in the right direction on the right things. So did I miss anything there, or what? So is that in a nutshell why it happens, or what have I missed there?
I don't think you've missed anything, Catherine. I honestly don't know why it happens, because it could be for so many different reasons. And every company and organization is different. So it would be hard to say why 100%. But I think it's that will, isn't it? That will of people, process, systems, leadership. It's the operational excellence will. And maybe just like with other things that need balance, if one falls out, then everything falls out. So I think going back to your original word, I think is balance. It has to be a fine balance of everything. And I don't know why one tips out, but it could be due to anything that happens in that wheel of greatness.
And the most important thing, as you say, is identifying that it's happening in the first place, and then understanding why, and then being able to apply the tools and the thinking and the leadership to change things around. Yeah, great. And you've given us some great tools and some great food for thought as well, Emma, which is really great. And, I liked Andy's question of like, what do you do if you don't have a lean consultant to hand? That's really important, because not every organization does. And we need to be able to make this practical and feasible within organizations that don't have any room for additional resources, but need to be able to do something about this issue. So Andy, yeah, great questions on that as well. So Emma, if people would like to know more about your business and your services, where can they go to find you?
Yeah, sure. So I've got a website. It's www.highci.com. And also on my LinkedIn profile, so you can find me directly, or High CI is also as a business page on there as well.
Brilliant. Good stuff.
Excellent. You did say, and I truly support and believe that this can be a difficult process, and you need a hand, no matter where you are in your journey or as an organization. So yeah, if people are looking to get started or get better, yeah, reach out to Emma. So it's been a great chat, Emma. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks, Emma. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Lean Solutions Podcast. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe. This way you'll get updates as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please give us a review. Thank you so much.